What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and the debt ceiling has been passed, and Republicans and Democrats are now trying to negotiate to see what is going to be cut and what is going to happen here. Take a look here. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says a debt default would cost 6 million jobs and push the jobless rate to 7%, which is double what it is now. Yeah, so just think about this. 6 million jobs would be cost if the U.S. defaults on its debt. That's a lot. Here's what she says. The U.S. economy could suffer an economic hit comparable to the 2007-2008 financial crisis and recession if the federal government defaulted on its debt, according to an analysis released on Monday. And I just looked at this in the last video, so I'll show this again briefly, but that was basically the worst long-term unemployment rate hike in recent history because unemployment went up to 10% and stayed up for years. Okay. So it started going up in 2008. At the end of 2008, it went up to 10% here in 2009, 2010. And here we are 9% in 2011, 8% in 2012, 7.5% in 2013, and it really didn't even start going down back to 5% until into 2015. So it took years and years for it to happen. Where basically in 2020 we spiked up because of the pandemic to 14.5%, 14.5%, but just a few months later we were already back down to 6%. And just even a few months after that, we were down to 5% and 4%. So we really recovered, at least from the unemployment side, pretty quickly. Now, of course, we had inflation come, but unemployment-wise, we recovered pretty quickly. Mark Zandi, a chief economist for Moody Analytics, who's not government related at all. They're just, they watch the economy and they're analytics people, estimated that the U.S. would lose 6 million jobs, $12 trillion in household wealth. So think about $12 trillion in household wealth and, pensions, IRAs, 401ks, and 4% of the entire GDP of our entire country. If Congress and the White House fails to raise the federal debt limit before the U.S. runs out of cash, which is really just in a matter of like 90 days at this point or something like that. We have February, March, April, and May. So like 120 days. The unemployment rate would also rise to at least 7%, up from the December 2022 rate of 3.5%. While brief default would likely be enough on its own to cause a recession, Zandi warned a protracted standoff over the debt ceiling would be ruinous for a vulnerable U.S. economy, saying, quote, if policymakers actually do fail to increase or suspend the limit before the Treasury runs out of cash and defaults on its obligations, interest rates will spike, stock prices will crater with enormous costs to taxpayers and the economy. He compared the initial financial market reactions to the House 2008 vote against passage of the Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP, which deepened the financial crisis already roiling global markets, saying, quote, if lawmakers do not reverse course and the impasse drags on for even a few weeks, the hit to the economy would be cataclysmic. Zandi's stark warning comes just days after the federal government already hit the $31.4 trillion debt limit cap on the national debt imposed by the bipartisan agreement last year. The federal government is now banned by law from borrowing any more money through the issuance of treasury bonds and must pay its bills with cash already on hand, basically in the checking accounts of the US government. Breaching the debt limit would force the federal government to freeze all planned spending, which would sap billions of dollars from the US economy and interrupt federal benefits. Financial markets would crater amid concerns of reliability from the federal government and trillions of US dollars held across the world as safe assets. Congress and the White House would also be unable to approve any fiscal support for the US economy while the debt limit was breached. Now, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has called on the House Republicans and Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the House Speaker, to unveil proposed spending cuts in the debt ceiling negotiations, which so far, House Republicans have been very mum on what they want to actually cut, especially because, well, they haven't been able to actually agree on it. And remember how hard of a time they had actually agreeing on even who to elect as a speaker. It took them 15 votes to actually do so. And some Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Some Republicans want to cut the military budget. Even Kevin McCarthy actually said in a Fox interview, which I aired on this channel in a previous video, that they might cut $75 billion to the military budget. So all that's on the table. Former President Donald Trump said to the Republicans not to cut Social Security and Medicare. But we had a Kaiser Permanente official, which is one of the largest healthcare providers in the country, say that if you don't cut Social Security and Medicare, and if you don't cut the military, or if you don't cut the military, and if you don't cut Social Security and Medicare, that's basically like 75% or somewhere around there of the entire budget of the whole country. There's just not much left to cut besides that. It just is what it is. So you probably won't be able to balance. Well, you for sure won't be able to. I think her quote was, "You won't be able to balance the budget if you don't make cuts. If you make cuts to other things and don't touch those things at all." Of course, when you ask people, should the military be cut? A lot of people say no. Should Social Security be cut? A lot of people say no, or almost everybody says no. Should Medicare be cut? Almost everybody says no. Should Medicaid be cut? A lot of people say no as well because there's tens of millions of people on Medicaid. In fact, I'll link you to that video with that interview from that official from Kaiser Permanente because it's a really, really good video. She she's not really from either side. She's not left or not right, and she gives a really, really good interview with a lot of just kind of stats and stuff on what Kevin McCarthy and Republicans and Democrats are kind of thinking about. But it will be good to see what kind of the Republican demands are, and that'll kind of when they put it on the paper, because we've seen who was that other interview from? I think it was from Joe Manchin, where Joe Manchin says, "Oh, we want to cut wasteful spending." Okay, what's wasteful? Because everybody says, "Oh, let's cut wasteful spending." All right, what's wasteful? Because I think the guy interviewing him said, "Well, one person wasteful spending to another person is not wasteful spending." Right? So that's the problem here. And then the other thing is that, like, when you talk about like wasteful spending, a lot of times you can find these, this, that, or the other thing, for example, Nancy Pelosi's park and stuff. And I get it. This, you could consider that wasteful spending. But a lot of times when you think about like parks and building parks for children and building, recreational parks, and, they build parks all over the country, right? Now, whether this park was named after Nancy Pelosi, or whether the park was named after Donald Trump, or whether the park was not named after anybody, they built parks all around the country, right? So the question is, do we stop building parks completely for the whole country, and then it's just we don't do that anymore? And even if they do that, it would be a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of the grand budget. Because when you look at the grand budget of our country, 865 billion. Let me look it up here. Okay, yeah, President Biden signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law here at the end of the year here, and a part of the $1.7 trillion bill, and it was $816.7 billion to the Defense Department, which was a little over half of the 1.7, which it was actually a little bit under $1.7 trillion bill for the entire government. Okay, so the defense bill, the defense of our country, makes over a little bit over half of that bill. And in fact, Congress actually authorized more than Joe Biden asked for. Yeah, you can see here, it actually includes $45 billion more than was originally requested by Biden. So Congress actually spent $45 billion more than Biden even asked for as president. So again, if they're so worried about inflation and spending, why did they spend $45 billion more than the president even asked for? It kind of makes you wonder. And remember here also that don't forget, I'm totally for the defense of our country, especially with Putin running wild and threatening our country with nukes. Definitely something to be concerned about. But is there wasteful spending there? We don't even know. We don't even know because the defense of our country is not audited at all. You hear the famous saying about the military spends $2,000 on a toilet seat. We don't even know because it's not audited. It's classified under you know basically classified information. But all the defense and the military, the Air Force, the Navy, uh, they just get the money and it's not audited. We don't know where the money goes and where it gets spent or anything like that. We just don't know. So who knows where the money gets spent, how it gets spent, or anything? We don't know. We just don't know. So there is probably a lot of wasteful spending there, but we don't know. It would be nice if at least it was audited under at least military. They somebody somehow some way they audited themselves, or they had a secure classified auditing process within themselves to maybe cut wasteful spending somehow in there. That would at least be nice, right? Maybe they could cut 10% or 5% of wasteful spending in there, right? But we don't even know what happens to the money in there, right? Think about that. Also, just for curiosity's sake, in case you're wondering here, this is actually a study from 2021, and the U.S. spends a little bit more than that now because it goes up every single year. We're going to be spending $1 trillion on defense here soon. But the USA spends more money on defense of our country than the next nine countries that spend the most on defense combined, which is China, India, United Kingdom, Russia, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and South Korea combined, or the rest of the world, 144 countries combined. They spend 535 billion combined. The entire world, 144 countries. We spend more than all of them combined. Just to give you guys an idea of how much we spend on military. So I think it's safe to say we have the best military in the world. I think it's safe to say that. However, the problem is nuclear bombs. Russia has 6,000 of them. Other countries have other nuclear bombs. That's the biggest problem in the world today. We know how much of a threat one single nuclear bomb is. I mean, look at what happened in World War II. That's the biggest problem of the whole situation, is that those things exist. So if there wasn't nuclear bombs, it'd be a different story. But if that ever happened, I mean, we have crazy people out there like Putin that would literally, they could shoot them at us or our allies or anything like that. I mean, with his back against the wall, it could literally happen. I mean, the guy crazy enough that he could do something like that. Would our defense be good enough to shoot every single one of them down if they started shooting at them at us? And then, who knows? Who knows? So it is a good thing that we have the best military in the world, or at least we think we do. But you know, the whole thing about cutting spending is kind of crazy because honestly, if the government cuts $50 billion from defense or $75 billion from defense, does that lower the price of eggs? Does that lower the price of milk? Does that lower the price of your rent? I don't think so. Remember here that the national debt went from 3 trillion in 1990 to 31 trillion here in 2023, and that really didn't correlate to inflation at all. Okay, inflation really didn't get bad here until the last like year and a half or so. And remember that inflation over in Europe is actually double what ours is right now in many countries, 11% in a lot of countries. Inflation is actually higher even in Canada right now. And in many countries around the world, gasoline is actually double the price of ours. You look in many countries in Europe right now, France, Italy, Spain, their price of gallon of gas is $7 a gallon right now in US dollars and in US gallons. So if you equate it to the equivalent. So I don't think really lowering, if we lowered $75 billion in defense spending, and surely if we cut Social Security and Medicare, would it lower the price of eggs? Would it lower the price of milk? Would it lower your rent? Is your landlord going to lower your rent payment because they cut military budget? Because if they cut your Social Security payment, it's surely not going to help inflation. So I really kind of think Congress is out of touch, and I think they've been out of touch for a while. They want to cut spending, but it's in all the wrong areas, and it's not going to help out the average American people. So, and I mean, inflation's everywhere. I mean, they have inflation in almost every single country right now in the world, and actually, we have our inflation is actually lower than a lot of countries around the world. I know people don't know this, and unless you look it up, but go Google inflation in any other country right now and see what their inflation is. And it's really kind of an eye opener. And a lot of this has just been since the pandemic because of the supply chain constraints, because of the price of gas, because of the price of diesel, because of the price of natural gas all around the world. It's just kind of it's happening everywhere. And I don't think cutting our defense or cutting our Social Security or Medicare, or sure, let's cut some wasteful spending on some of these ridiculous programs that we have. But realistically, yeah, we could do that, but it's going to make a small dent in the spending that we do anyways. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country on a daily basis, and we'll see what happens. So make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you appreciate this, make sure to give me a like here and share these videos with somebody who needs to hear this. And here's some videos you can watch next. Here's a video about what the IRS just made some changes that could put money in your pocket. And here is a new video about $1,000 and $1,500 checks going out that you might not even know about. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.